Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Today's guest began his professional journey on Wall Street, excelling as a trader and portfolio manager for 9 years. He then leveraged his finance experience to pave a way into marketing and user engagement, where he has successfully leveraged his analytical skills to drive growth and innovation. His triathlon resume includes an overall win at the Ironman Maryland 2014 and a 72nd finish at 2015 Ironman at Kona. Today, he is the vice president of marketing at TriDot Triathlon Training. Please welcome Matt Bach.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. I appreciate you being on the show. As you know, we love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. So I'm curious, Matt, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
Yeah, the main thing is, the rigors of training for Ironman made me realize that I can take that same rigor, apply it to other things, and have an outsized impact. So I'm willing to make, I've noticed over the years, especially since really training heavily in triathlon and rising to a pretty elite level between 2010 and 2016, that since then I've noticed that I'm willing to make more sacrifices, dig deeper, work longer hours, work harder than just many other people. So I personally tend to be kind of all or nothing with a lot of things. And endurance training and my successes there gave me the confidence that I can be successful at anything that I set my mind to.
That's really well said. And it's absolutely true. Any specific examples of things that a barrier or an obstacle that has presented itself in your life that you have reverted back to those tough training days or that elite athletic performance that's helped you push through?
Yeah, I'm definitely multiple examples. While here at Predictive Fitness, there's certain projects that come up, and right now my focus is very much my family. I've got 3 kids and another one on the way, and my career. And there's so much happening here and so much opportunity here to really grow the sport of triathlon, grow this. The company of Predictive Fitness is actually the company name, and TriDot being one of our big brands. And so there's a few different specific instances where huge launches or projects came upon us that are huge opportunities that really needed to be executed on extremely well. For instance, our partnership with Ironman. We started a partnership with Ironman last fall, and there are so many different facets to our partnership with Ironman that getting that off the ground with our team was a massive, monumental task. And so in order to do that, waking up early, working late, like I'm accustomed to waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning to be able to get the training in. And so instead of getting the training in right now with triathlon sort of on the back seat for me at the moment, instead just those early mornings, waking up at the time when business hasn't started yet for most people, it's quiet. I'm not getting emails or Teams messages and things like that. I can sit and get a ton of work done before the day really starts for most people, is something where normally I'm getting the work done on a bike or on the road somewhere, from all that, the rigorous Ironman training. But now that's been kind of reapplied to be able to work in temporary stints anyway, because it's not really sustainable to be, for me to be waking up that early all the time. But really applying that same rigor of Ironman training and intensity and focus, and applying that same thing to work. And also using things like caffeine, like using caffeine as a performance enhancing drug in the sport of triathlon is effective. It's for focus and performance enhancement, and it's all legal, right? But then in the space of professional getting work done and being a super efficient, using caffeine in my work day very intentionally has also been very helpful.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of everything to get to the starting line, to get to the finish line, to launch a project. Any other habits that you have sort of in your toolkit that you use to sort of help you excel at work and also in performance?
Yeah, pay yourself first kind of mindset, where if there's something that's super important and high priority, blocking out a period of time in my calendar to say, this is something that I need to do. And that might be, back when I was training for triathlon, it was a lot of it is this workout needs to happen. This is a high priority for me. It's important for me and my me reaching my goals in the sport. And so I'm going to do that at that 5 to 6:30 a.m. time slot before anything else in my life or work can get in the way of the training. And so prioritizing it and blocking out that time period. It's the same thing in the professional space, blocking out a time period where, okay, this is an hour and a half where I'm going to sit and just purely strategically think about the goals and things that we have as an organization and pull myself out of the weeds, so to speak, or out of having meetings or calls or responding to any Teams chats or anything like that, or emails, and just pulling myself out of that, throwing on some classical music and just allowing my brain to creatively think and strategically think about the direction going forward.
I'm going to take that one step further, Matt. Um, does the team that you work with at Predictive Fitness have a similar mindset, similar approach? I could imagine everybody might be up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. So it actually defeats the purpose of trying to, get the workday started before everybody else. But I'm curious how the team habits, teams, personality within your group, because I could imagine it's a very competitive, from a sports perspective, maybe not amongst each other, but a very competitive elite group of individuals. And I'd love to know more about how that plays out in a team dynamic.
Yeah. So here we do have Predictive Fitness. Many of our employees, the vast majority of the employees here are runners and endurance enthusiasts and triathletes themselves. Many who are very committed and serious about it, who have been in the sport for a long time. So you're right, that mindset exists in many of the staff members. Many are still competing. And so a lot of the time they're getting up in the morning at 4 or 5 in the morning, but they're doing their sessions, their training sessions. And so it tends to still be pretty quiet on those early hours. Our CEO is also very much very much a type A, very hard worker. He is incredibly hardworking, and he's up early. I mean, sometimes 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So a lot of the time it actually ends up being him and I up super early in the morning, sometimes even meeting at 6 or 7 in the morning, when others on staff are often training, because they're still actively competing and training in the world of triathlon.
For the audience members who don't know what Predictive Fitness is or does, could you give us a little bit of background and how that's developed over time?
Yeah, sure. So it's been kind of in the making for over right about 20 years in terms of the research and development of the company. The company Predictive Fitness, that's the name of it, but our brands that are what people know most are TriDot and RunDot, which is purely for runners. TriDot was our flagship and is our flagship and started first. And that was back in around 2009, 2010. And TriDot we use artificial intelligence, big data to create training programs for triathletes. It's ultra personalized. It's very specific to who you are, all the way down to the core of who you are. So it takes into account tons and tons of different factors about you, your age, your gender, some basic kind of biometric type inputs like that, height, weight. Takes into account your location and what environment that you're training in. So the heat, the humidity, all these things, it takes into account that data so that your training zones are super accurate and super precise, that your training stress is accurate on a day-to-day basis. You're not over training, you're not under training, you're optimized training so that you're getting the most out of yourself and getting the most out of the time that we all have, which many of us are family people, and we have families, we have jobs, and so you have limited time to train, and you want to get the most out of yourself that you can during that time that you have to be able to train. So TriDot creates better results in less time with fewer injuries, and we've proven that through research over the course of the last 20 years or so.
And I would imagine 20 years ago, was that sort of like a spreadsheet driven before we had the depth of technology that we have today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's evolved amazingly. Back in 2005 or so is when the research began. And 2010, it began as in a spreadsheet, like you said, and it was very rudimentary compared to what it is now. But over time, it's evolved, and like I said, the environment normalization feature was laid in there, along with a component of what we call physiogenomics, which actually takes into account your genetics. So when I say down to your core, I mean it's really down to your core. You can optionally, you don't have to do it, but you can upload your raw genome, and it will tailor your training specifically to your predispositions to injury, aerobic stress, anaerobic intensity, and response to those types of stress and all that. So it's gotten way better over time. There's an app, you can use it from your desktop, from mobile, and it's super convenient. It's user friendly and convenient, intuitive, and all those things now, but it wasn't always like that. It was, like you said, it started out as a spreadsheet.
You know, there's this never ending debate I find in our industry between training using data and training using feel,
Mhm.
right? Just how you woke up that morning or how the exertion you put on the bike over the weekend. Any Clearly, I would suspect you're on the data side. Any commentary on that sort of debate between feel and data?
Both are super important. There's a massive amount of data that's available to us nowadays, and as humans, we can only process so much of that. And feeling is important as well. So you do want to listen to some degree, listen to your own body, and listen to those signals that it's sending you. And it's also like one thing that's a key crucial point here that I didn't mention yet is the fact that you can use TriDot or Run with or without a coach. The ideal is that you're using it with a coach because then you have the best of both worlds. You have the data, the technology, doing what technology does best, which is to analyze and optimize and process and all this data that we have and create the best proposed solution for that. And then you have a person, a coach with the expertise and the knowledge and the relationship that can then provide all those other things that a human does better than technology ever could. The relationship, the motivation, the accountability, the phone calls, the hey, how are you doing? Like stress that's outside of your training, right? TriDot doesn't know that you're having a tough time at work right now with massive long hours, or that you're having a tough time with in your home life with your family and you're going through a bad patch or any of those stresses that might be happening. TriDot doesn't know that. So if you have that coach to help modify and mold your training, and the coaches have full jurisdiction over all the training. They can go in and the training is written by TriDot, but they can go in and they make whatever changes they want. So you might have a wedding this weekend and you can't do your long run on Saturday. So the coach can help move those things around in an intelligent way, in an expert kind of way. They help with all the knowledge, right? The nutrition, the gear selection, the race planning, like all these different things that coaches do really, really well. So the best of both worlds is really to have both.
Certainly. Yeah, my coach, and I've been working with her now for probably 10, 12 years. Like she really earns her wage when I've picked up a small injury and we got to make an adjustment to the training schedule. And it's like, all right, I want you to spend Saturday on the elliptical and not out running on the trail. So Matt, I'm going to change gears on you a little bit. Talk to us about your history. Like when did you start getting into fitness? How did you end up on Wall Street? And kind of take us through your career path, kind of going back to the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So back in middle school, I started running a bit. I got peer pressured into it from a friend of mine. I didn't like it and didn't want to do it, but it was just the peer pressure thing. And I ended up doing it in high school with him as well. And then we had a great coach and a great team. And I found that if what I put into it, I got out of it, and I liked that aspect of it. And so I ended up kind of over time, over the 3 or 4 years in my high school running career, getting pretty good and really enjoying the sport and the team and the coach and the training and the structure. So that was really where I got started in running was mainly in high school. And after that, I went to Penn State. I walked on the team there, ran D1 for a semester. And then I discovered that I didn't really like the team as much or the coaching, and but I needed that structure. So I couldn't figure out how to run on my own the same way and be as structured and motivated. And so I ended up stopping running for a while, for about 2.5 years, but then came back to it, started running open marathons. I ran the Baltimore Marathon in 2008. Then I started doing triathlon in 2010. And then it really kind of picked up steam for me in 2010, where I really started to pour a lot of myself into triathlon and getting as good as I could be at triathlon, at swim, bike, run. And so I ended up doing my first half Ironman event in 2011. I did a few. And then I did my first full Ironman event in 2012 up in Lake Placid. I did 6 full Ironman events throughout the next few years, and one Ironman Maryland in 2014, and 72nd at the World Championship in 2015. And at that point, I was sort of considering, hey, maybe I should try to go pro in triathlon. And for various reasons, decided against it. But from a professional standpoint, triathlon was my hobby while I was on Wall Street. And I have a major in finance from Western Connecticut, and I ended up graduating there, and then very quickly being able to move on to the front desk in trading and portfolio management, and was there for 9 years on Wall Street. But then decided I wanted to make a career change, and got my MBA from Temple University, and then changed to sports marketing, where I've been for the last 6 years.
I love that story. I have to ask the question about Ironman Maryland because I've done that race twice and I've done the half as well. Like, were you out of the gate winning and like, give me that sensation as like, as an age group or what it feels like to be the first one that crosses that finish line.
Yeah, yeah, it was incredible, and I was not out the gate. Swim is my weakest, relatively. So out of the swim, I don't remember what place I was, but I was nowhere near first. I don't know. I think I was probably like 20th or 30th or something in my age group at that point, not even the overall race. But then on the bike, I ended up, the bike is stronger for me than it is the run, but the swim, but the run is my strongest. And so I was on the bike, and I remember hearing somebody say, uh, you're in 11th overall. And I was like, wow, okay, I didn't think I was this close towards the front. And I could see maybe the next 7 or 8 people right ahead of me on the bike. They weren't very far ahead. And so I was like, all right, I don't know where first or second are, but I know like third through 10th or whatever it is are all fairly close. Like, and my run is the strongest. So maybe I could chart my way through these folks, and who knows, maybe I could win this thing. And then I realized I got a long way to go. So don't even think about those thoughts. Let's put those thoughts aside for a moment and just put our head down and do the work here. So I got off the bike, and then I was very quickly on the run, was in third place because those people were fairly close to me up ahead. And then I heard some time splits between the people in second and first, and I realized, okay, they're I think it was 12 and 9 minutes ahead initially when I heard. And then only a mile later, I got another split, and they were only something like 10 and 7 minutes ahead or something. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm feeling very relaxed on this run, but I'm putting time into them, significant time into them, even just in these first couple miles. So that was the moment where I was like, I'm going to win this race. And I put my head down and just kept doing what I was doing, closing that gap, trying to be as efficient, smooth as possible, stay on top of the hydration and the nutrition. And then it was at I think it was about mile 15 is when I made the pass into first and took over that lead biker who was leading me down the road. And that was just awesome to have that feeling. And then for the next 11 miles was basically running as smooth and consistent as possible, listening to the splits to make sure that that gap was growing and not shrinking as I started to feel worse and worse later into that marathon, because inevitably it feels pretty miserable.
Yeah.
But then I was just elated when I was in those last, really early last half mile, just thinking, holy cow, I can't believe I just won this thing, and crossing that line and holding that tape up. And wow, it was one of the best days of my life. It's unexpected.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it's usually when you're crossing that finish is when I'm getting off the bike, so I can appreciate the play-by-play there. But I'm gonna jump back to your sports marketing shift and the pivot from Wall Street. Walk us through the sort of the emotions that you were going through at that time of making such a major change in your career.
Yeah. So for my 9 years in Wall Street, it was a roller coaster of different, and that's how it often is in Wall Street. It's such an fast moving, unstable type of industry. Ups and downs right in the midst of that. I mean, I joined the finance industry in 2008, 2009, which is when the financial crisis was going on, and I was able to get a job in the back office, but I was happy to get any job at all at that point. And the company that I was at went under like 3 or 4 months after I started there. And they told me, even as I was interviewing for the job, that might happen. And then it did. The company went under. It was a hedge fund, and they weren't able to make it through the financial crisis. So I got to see a down there. And then the next company I went to is called Direction, a leveraged ETF provider. I got to see the ups, because that company went from something like just under 2 billion in assets up to 8 billion, I think, by the time I left a few years later. That's just massive growth there. So I really got to see both a down and an up already with that. And then at the next couple of positions, it was the same thing. It was ups and downs, and companies, not quite making it, and a company that was thriving. And so all the ups and downs, the emotions, the roller coaster, and then some of the emotions that was happening. I was in triathlon. I was considering going pro, ended up deciding not to go pro because I didn't want my wife to live on her parents' couch while I tried to make a go at it for a couple of years. I quit my full-time job and all that on Wall Street. She married me knowing that I was not even knowing I was a triathlete, or that I was going to want to go pro in triathlon or anything. And she married a guy who was in finance and, making good money. And it was tough to make the decision to not kind of pursue that passion, but I knew the chances were so, so slim. And then I also got injured at around the same time. And we were also thinking about starting a family at the same time. And so between all those three things, it's like, you know what? It is not meant to be. It is not my path, but maybe I can harness this hobby and turn it into something that is really meaningful and is my profession now. And so I went back, got my MBA. I didn't quite know that I would end up in sports marketing, but I did know that the MBA would open up doors for me. And towards the end of that, one of my sponsors at UCAN, the nutrition company, had conversations with them. And with about a few months to go before I got my MBA and I graduated, I accepted a position there with UCAN in sports marketing and business development. So I was there for 2.5 years and then accepted the position here at Predictive Fitness to lead the marketing team, sort of taking everything that I had learned and experienced as a triathlete myself and everything that the business acumen and the finance and the analytical abilities that I had gained from Wall Street and sort of parlaying that into a new career. And it was one of the other emotions that I had before leaving the world of Wall Street. It was a little challenging because I was like, all right, right now I'm making money for people who are already wealthy, and it doesn't feel as fulfilling as something like helping people to get the most out of themselves in sport, which was really exciting and a passion for me, for my own self and what the impact that I could see it making in others. So that was some of it. And I had the choice at one point of, okay, do I go and find another job on Wall Street and potentially kind of sell my soul, so to speak, right? Like I'm going to be working tons of hours, an hour and a half plus commute each way in and out of the city. I live about an hour and a half. Well, it's an hour and a half if it's by train and all the commute during the crazy rush hour. Do I want to do that and not even know my kids because we were starting a family at the time? Or do I want to make a change and potentially, make less than what I was making on Wall Street, but be happier doing what I'm doing? And ultimately, that's the change that I made, and happy that I did.
Yeah, I mean, what a big leap. But it's also that fulfillment, right? You need to wake up every morning and have the satisfaction of your work life matching up with your personal life and your hobbies. And it's all, to me, it's what I get to do every day. It doesn't feel like work anymore because I just love it. And I've got this real passion for it. Well, Matt, congratulations on the partnership with Ironman. I'm sure there's a lot of stories that you can and can't share, but can you share like a story of how that came together, what it's like working with such an enormous brand that's dominating our industry?
Yeah. Ironman approached us it's probably maybe 2 years ago now. And they were, this is a quote, like deeply interested in working with us because we had recently brought on Mark Allen. He brought all of his athletes over to coach on using the platform. And obviously Mark Allen, the GOAT in the space. I mean, it's such a 6-time Ironman world champion, kind of drew some attention. And so I think that was in part why, and we're growing so much. And so Ironman kind of approached us and said, hey, how can we partner? How can we make the experience for athletes better and make the entire sport of triathlon better because of the partnership that we have together? And so we had many, many months of, conversations and trying to figure out if it was a great fit and what that fit could be and how we could work with them. And so, I mean, one of the big things with Ironman is that they're a big brand, and most of the sponsors that come in and the partners that they work with are a fraction of a category. And we're actually an entire category of training, but we're also beyond that. We're TriDot Pool School, which teaches proper swim form to adult triathletes, is the official swim training program of Ironman as well. We're also the operators and administrators of Ironman U coach certification. And so there's multiple categories that we own, that we are partners and own that space with them. And so it's beyond the not even just a fraction of one category. It's beyond even just one whole category, which even by itself is somewhat rare. It's multiple categories. And so the scope of the partnership, the amount of things that we can do together with Ironman is massive. They're very, like, relative to most of the companies in the space, Ironman is very corporate, right, business-like, and very professional. And so there's the pros and cons that come along with that, which are many people have described. But overall, the shift seems to be a good one with the new CEO here, Scott Deroux, very much about the experience of the athletes and some of the actions that he's taken lately in terms of athletes not having a great experience at one of the Ironmans. Has actually extended free registration for another Ironman 70.3 event coming up because of so-and-so reason. So that's good to see that, that perhaps things are maybe even shifting over the Ironman side and getting some more athlete favor behind them. But yeah, they are the big operator in the space. They're the biggest brand operating in all of triathlon.
Absolutely. Well, and they put on, in my experience so far, they put on a great race, and crossing that finish line, there's nothing like it. Matt, shifting focus just one more time. What do you see the next 10 years of our industry, how technology is using? Like, what projects are you guys building at Predictive Fitness that are going to even further enhance, if you can talk about it, further enhance our participation in sport?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to just take a piece of the pie of training in the triathlon space. We want to help grow the entire pie and help grow the whole sport of triathlon. Kind of a perfect segue to that question. It's a good question, from what I was just describing with Ironman being more corporate, right? More kind of focused on the short-term earnings and kind of thing. Like those things that may change, right? But at the same time, like their biggest focus is driving their business, and USA Triathlon has somewhat kind of contributed towards the growth of the sport, but neither party, they're the two biggest players in the space. There are other parties in the space as well, but nobody really has the force to be able to grow the entire sport the way that we could potentially do. So we want to come in as TriDot and actually grow the sport, bring athletes into the sport, have our coaches be the types of people that are bringing people into the sport, not just grabbing at all the athletes that are out there that might be willing to hire a coach, but also bringing athletes into triathlon and creating new triathletes out of them. We in part created TriDot Pool School so that we could teach people to swim properly, because it is such a barrier of the sport. Like, so many people are hesitant to become triathletes because of the swim. But if they can learn proper swim form and be confident enough that either they're going to, maybe just reach the finish line of the swim and within the cutoff, or well within the cutoff, or not just be completely gassed from the swim, that they can then go on and do what maybe they like the best, which is the bike and the run, bike or the run. And we have RunDot, which is using the same optimization technology that's behind TriDot, but it's for pure runners. So we have a huge database and a huge network of runners, pure runners, that many of them are not triathletes. And we could now have avenues through TriDot Pool School, for instance, to make triathletes out of them. So triathlon, we also have the Olympics this year. So all the attention that's coming with that, looking to harness some of that attention and that to be able to grow the sport. Triathlon's had a bit of a tough go the last 10 years or so. The Olympics came in 2000. Like, triathlon became part of the Olympics in 2000 in Sydney. We saw a boom after that. There was a boom before that, multiple booms before that. And then ever since around 2013, 2014, the sport's been kind of stable or even shrinking, especially through the pandemic. It's kind of boomed back since the pandemic, but we really want the sport to grow overall, because in part because it's just our passion, right? We love the sport. We want people to benefit from it the same way that we have as triathletes ourselves.
And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and it is a better experience for the athlete when it is growing, because then more gets invested in the industry, better coaching, better technology, more races, just the whole ecosphere just grows. Matt, you mentioned TriDot Pool School, and I should have asked you this earlier. Can you give us a little bit more intel and inside of what that is? Is that a virtual sort of training, or do you have actually physical locations? Like, give me a sense of what TriDot's doing there.
Yeah. So it's centered around a weekend workshop which is 2 days, 4 hours each day in the pool and poolside, working with our instructors to learn proper swim form. Prior to that, there's 6 weeks of dry land drills that you're instructed to do virtually through videos. And there's lots of guidance and videos and things to help you do that. But that lays the groundwork. It's kind of like Karate Kid. Are we liking it to like Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off? And he's like, why am I cleaning the fence, right? But then he learns, okay, these motions I can use with my karate. Well, like the same thing here. You're doing these drills ahead of time, these dryland drills that then establish muscle movements and muscle patterns and some muscle strength in ways that you're then going to use during the weekend workshop so that you can get the most out of that weekend. So we have locations all around the US and some in Europe. So we've started launching TriDot pool schools in Spain and the UK. And then we have a whole bunch of them in regular locations around the United States, maybe 10 or so different locations around the United States. So you sign up for one of those, and then you receive a series of emails that instructs you on those dryland drills, and you prepare and you get some equipment that you need, just a few basic things that you need to be able to get the most out of your weekend workshop. And we find it's remarkable. It's like something like around 13% improvement per 100 for the athletes that come. And those that are, as you might imagine, those that are faster tend to gain something more like 7%. Right? They don't gain as much because there's not as much low-hanging fruit to pluck. And then those that come in swimming 2 to 3 minutes per 100 yard, right? They come in with more beginners and maybe not as comfortable in the water. They tend to drop a lot more, something like 17% on average. So the results are remarkable, and nearly everybody has significant gains in the pool from attending this, whether they're new or whether they're seasoned swimmers. Mark Allen attended. He dropped from like 110. He's in the 60s. He's swimming still on 110. Swimming, he dropped down from 110 to 104. Tim O'Donnell attended, dropped a few seconds as well. He's already under a minute, dropped a few seconds off his 100 time. So it works for anybody all the way up to the pointy end. And then everybody, we've seen people drop from 245 per 100, drop down to 135 by the end of the weekend. So it's remarkable, the improvements.
That's amazing. And are you sending out your instructors to those pool locations, or is there a training program that you're training instructors of how to sort of deliver that workshop?
Both. So we have staff members that we fly out and lead, but there's, in nearly every case, there's a local team of coaches, local, regional, that come in and that are drivable, right? That know it, that are trained and instructed on how to be TriDot pool school instructors. They're certified, and so they're the ones that are the lane leads. And there's a super high coach to athlete ratio, coach to athlete ratio is something like 3 to 1.
Wow.
Well, only three athletes, 1 coach. Sometimes it's even less than that, like 2.5 to 1. So it's pretty remarkable that how much attention you get. The feedback loop is incredibly fast, and that's one reason why the athletes improve so much.
And then I would assume they then stick with their dryland routine and their own at-home pool routine to continue that improvement.
Yeah, most athletes have very specific things that maybe they struggle with more than others, that they need to work on more. And so the instructors provide the athletes with specific tips and guidance on what the athlete should do, which drills they should really use and to enforce what it is that they're trying to improve upon. And so we do find that even though that 13% is improvement from a few weeks before through the weekend workshop, we find that the improvements continue after that because they use those drills to reinforce and start actually swimming and really developing the muscle memory required by doing laps and drills and doing their sessions using the new form that they've learned.
Yeah. Well, and back to your point, where predictive fitness is truly trying to expand and grow our market, swim has been such a huge barrier for many, many people. This is just a great illustration of how your company is, doing what it says it's going to do by creating a workshop and a technology and a process around pool swimming. So thank you for that. And I'm actually really intrigued, and in about 20 minutes, we'll be on your website signing up for the next pool session. Matt, how can an audience member get in touch with you?
Let's see. I'm personally on social media with Instagram and on Facebook. So Iron Matt Bach, IRONMATTBACH is how you can find me on most of the social platforms on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook mainly. And if you want to follow the company, TriDot Triathlon Training is the handle for that on Instagram, and I believe it's also the same thing on Facebook. You should be able to find us either way on and also RunDot if you're a runner. TriDot Pool School. You can visit our website. We have a website for obviously TriDot RunDot, and TriDot Pool School has a separate several landing pages on our TriDot site. So I can send you the links afterwards, so you can perhaps put them in the show notes.
Yeah, that 100%. We'll put those in the show notes. Matt, I've been really enjoying our conversation. When you walked us through your career change, it brought me back memories of some career changes that I've made in my past. I want to thank your friend who gave you the peer pressure to join the running team in middle school, and even pressured you again in high school. That kind of got you on this path so that you're now contributing in a major way to our industry. And lastly, this discussion around the pool school, the swim is such a big barrier to our industry. And the fact that you're putting your shoulder into this is very much appreciated. Audience members, if you got some value out of our show today, I ask that you like the show, you subscribe, go follow Matt on social media, share this episode, share this with your friends and your family so that more people can feel the impact we're having here. Matt, again, thanks for making the time, being on our show today. It's been a great conversation.
Great. Thanks for having me on, Greg.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.